I've previously done a lecture for my analog circuits for music synthesis class from the spring 2020 semester on using operational transconductance amplifiers to form voltage-controlled amplifiers. OTAs are useful in many other applications. In later lectures, we'll look at using them to create voltage-controlled oscillators and voltage-controlled filters. But for all of these applications, to making voltage-controlled amplifiers, oscillators, or filters, there's nothing particularly magical about OTAs themselves per se. You can do the same sort of trick as long as you have some sort of circuit element that has variable gain. So this is a repeat of a slide from the OTA lecture. I just wanted to review the basic ideas. There's a current output that comes from the difference of two particular input voltages, and we're going to assume that these are high impedance inputs, so there's no current flowing through here. And the transconductance gain is controlled by a third input pin. It's controlled by a current, and the transconductance is given by that control current divided by 2Vt, where Vt is something called a thermal voltage. It does, as you might guess by the name, change with temperature. If we plug this in for GM, we can see that this is basically a two-quadrant multiplier. And a standard value that people use for VT is 26 millivolts, although people often use 25 millivolts just because it can make the math easier if you're doing it on the back of an envelope. This does change with temperature, but this is close enough for most, say, VCA applications. If we're using this for a voltage-controlled oscillator, you might want to think about that a little bit more. And if you do the math here, we wind up with 19.2 times the control current. And to keep the notation a little clean, we'll usually not write over volts, although technically you need it there in order to get the units to work out. I do want to mention that there are other symbols used for OTAs. You'll see this trapezoid symbol used, particularly in papers or books that are talking about using OTAs as a building block inside an analog circuit. Have the output coming out here, and we'll have a control current coming in there. If you read papers by my colleague Jen Hassler, who does a lot of work with analog signal processing, she'll often use a standard op-amp symbol with a third input pin for the control current and not actually draw these little circles here at the output. So that's another thing that you'll see. There's a wide variety of other circuit elements that have controllable gain. One of them was created by David Blackmer, founder of a company called DBX that makes compressors. And when I say compressor there, if you're not familiar with that terminology, I'm not meaning compression as in like a format like MP3, a data compression format for audio. I mean dynamic range compression. So it looks at the overall volume of a signal and then sort of temporarily ducks down the volume in places where it's getting above some threshold. So the circuit he developed was this weird little cross circuit here. There's an input current and an output current, and then you can control the gain via a couple of voltages. And this inherently has an exponential control characteristic. So this isn't like taking an OTA and then putting a voltage to current converter that instead of having a linear characteristic has an exponential characteristic, adding it onto it. The exponential control is inherent into the structure of the circuit. This is very heavily used in things like SSL mixing consoles, compressors like the DBX160, and these have enough precision that those compressors are actually used in a feed-forward mode. Most compressors use a feedback sidechain mode, which includes the SSL compressors. All the various SSL compressors use this kind of DBX Blackmer cell chip, but with a feedback mode instead of the feed-forward sidechain mode that something like the DBX160 uses. The only application I know of in a commercial synthesizer is this sort of core was used by, I think in a 4-transistor version, was used by Serge and his synthesizers. DBX spun off the actual IC intellectual property to something called That Corporation, which is not the world's most creative name. But anyway, you'll see this used very heavily in professional pro audio circuits. You will see OTAs used all over the place in synthesizers, obviously, while I'll talk to them, and also guitar pedals, where the performance characteristics aren't quite as critical. But OTAs tend to be a bit noisy in application, so you won't really see them in quote-unquote pro compressors. Another extremely interesting chip was the SSM2164. This sadly went out of production, but it's been reproduced by Cool Audio. I think that's Behringer's integrated circuit factory, and there's a new company called Sound Semiconductor that's really interesting that has reissued an improved version of it. For instance, the original SSM2164 had a quirk where if the power supplies sort of came up in the wrong order, or basically if they didn't both come up at the same time, the positive or negative supplies, the chip would fry, which apparently the new chip fixes, this SSI Tu144, and also it's supposed to have better characteristics, etc., etc. Now, unlike the OTA that has voltage input and voltage output, that and DBX chips that I just described and this SSM chip have current input and current output. So it's a current gain. So the gain there would be unitless instead of having units of mhos or transconductance. Also, an OTA on its own has a current control pin for the gain. The chips, DBX chips, and this SSM chip, these have a voltage control. And like the DBX and that chips, these have an inherent exponential characteristic. You don't need to add an exponential voltage to current converter to it the way you would if you use an OTA. One thing I like about SSI compared to the original SSM is their datasheet is amazing. There's all sorts of fantastic stuff on it, all sorts of voltage-controlled filter designs, and they have an application note, this AN701, that has even more cool, amazing goodness. There was another quote-unquote OTA-based filter, and I want to put that in quotes since although there is an OTA built into the CM3320 circuit, you don't access that OTA directly. So if you see a schematic with this, it can take a while to get used to try to figure out what exactly you're seeing. So this is marketed as a voltage-controlled filter chip, but the filtering just comes from the capacitors you happen to add to it, like with an OTA. It really is a set of generic gain-building blocks. Something a little bit different about it compared to the other chips I've showed you so far is that the OTAs, that/DBX chips, the SSM2164, those all have either 1, 2, or 4 separate elements that have separate control pins. The 3320, all of the 4 gain cells inside of it are driven by the same control voltage. So it's very useful for making your standard 4-pole sort of filters that are commonly used in synthesizers. So this is based on a patent by Doug Curtis, who is the designer of the chip. And the reason I mention these chips is they've recently been reissued. Now, you can read the datasheet, but I found that the best source for information on this particular chip is actually a series of magazine articles, particular filter for a set of modules that was marketed under the name Digisound that was marketed to the do-it-yourself community. This is information that is in the datasheet, but it's really presented very well in this article. There is an OTA inside the chip, and there is a buffer that's built inside the chip, but you don't have direct access to the control pin. That's done through some separate voltage to current kind of conversion thing. There's also this weird diode structure at the beginning of it. So you don't really have direct access to the OTA, and so trying to treat it directly as an OTA looking at a schematic can be very confusing at first. If you dig into the patent, you can see the basic OTA structure. So we saw when we looked at the LM13700, here you have a BJT differential pair. That's what gives it its hyperbolic tangent kind of nonlinearity. We've got 3 current mirrors sitting here. You will see people try to roll their own OTA where they'll have just a differential pair here and a current mirror. Here, like in the 13700, there's a couple other current mirrors that help sort of buffer whatever's happening out here from what's happening inside here. But there is a bunch of other stuff on the Curtis chip. So there's this complicated voltage control setup here that does that exponential conversion. And you don't really access the input to the OTA directly. You have to do it through a diode. So the input of the Curtis chip is actually what they'll say is a low impedance summing node, which is nice because then if you have a bunch of voltages you want to sum up, that's easy to do. You can just sort of set up some resistances that convert those voltages into currents and shove them into the input here. So it's not like a voltage input like the OTA. It does take a current input. The other thing that takes a while to get used to is because of the way this is set up, there's some strange biasing going on. So if you look at a circuit that uses this, you'll see some various resistances hooked to some supply voltages that are hanging out to keep things biased. There are other gain control devices. There's things called 4-quadrant multipliers, this Gilbert multiplier structure. And you'll see something like the ECE4450. This is used in the Buchla frequency shifter. The RC4200, what is that used in? I think it's used in the Korg MS50. It's ring modulator. You'll see this also used in things like guitar pedals. The AD633 is substantially more expensive than either of these, but is also of substantially higher quality. So I think that's used in the Syndustries. I think Cynthia Webster used that in the Zero oscillator. And you generally won't see this used very often, this kind of structure in synthesizers, because you don't get a very big control range compared to what you can get from an OTA or one of that DBX chips or the SSM2164 or whatever. There is a newsletter that was put together by Bernie Hutchins. At least the last time I checked, you could still get this in paper form, probably around a little over a decade ago, actually. I think I sent him something like a $300 check. And he then sent me this giant box full of loose leaf papers of all the lecture notes, which I very carefully hole punched and put in 3-ring binders that are currently sitting in my office at Georgia Tech. And there was an article on using these things and other elements to do voltage control. Especially if you get into compressors, you will see other kinds of elements out there. They'll take a resistor and they'll run it down through a JFET. And there's all kinds of things you can do here with different other hookups. And basically, they'll use the JFET here as a variable resistance. So you'll see that used in something like the 1176 compressor. And my colleague Marshall Leach, who sadly passed away about a decade ago, has a paper on using JFETs to make compressors. Now, you won't see this kind of structure, though, used very often in a voltage-controlled filter for a synthesizer, although I have seen a few cases, because you don't get a very wide control range with this. Even if you use this as a voltage-controlled amplifier, remember, something like a compressor isn't trying to ever shut a signal all the way off. It just needs to duck it down a little bit. There's also a tube-based compressor called the Veramu. It's made by Manley. And the tubes that are used in it are called Veramu. And that's probably worth a lecture all on its own someday. And I can't think of really a transistor equivalent of it. It's really a fairly specialized tube. It's based on old Fairchild compressors. You also see these diamond bridges, not diamond bridges. You also see these diode bridges. So the idea here is that you have a set of diodes in this kind of bridge structure, and you can pass a current through here, and this effectively changes the dynamic resistance of the diodes. It's kind of a similar idea to the diode capacitor filters that we looked at in the Moog ladder filter when the original Moog used transistors. Companies like Roland and EMS use diodes to get around the patent. But the idea is you can put your signals through here, and you can build either filters or you can build voltage-controlled amplifiers this way. So something like the Korg MS50 uses this structure in both its voltage-controlled amplifier and voltage-controlled filter. This is used in the voltage-controlled filter in the Yamaha GX1. And very famously, this is used in some Neve compressors. One other thing I wanted to mention that's very exciting, this sound semiconductor company also released the SSI Tu144. It's an update of the SSM2044 chip. And something that's particularly unique about it is that it's sort of a combination of ideas from the Moog ladder filter that I talk about in another lecture and standard OTA C filter, again, that we'll look at in detail in another lecture. Instead of having standard OTAs with 2 voltage inputs and a current output, the 2144 and the SSI Tu144 before it have differential OTAs. So there's still a plus or minus voltage input, but the output actually has a plus and minus current. So it sort of has this folded differential structure of the Moog ladder, but using OTAs instead of just bare NPN transistors. Now, when you look at the sort of functional block diagram on the datasheet, you'll see these capacitors here, but you're expected to bring your own capacitors and add them to the chip. Like the other chips we've looked at, these are really generic gain control elements. So if you wanted, you could use one of these to create, I guess, a voltage-controlled amplifier. But like the CM3320 chip and some other quote-unquote filter chips, these are all driven by the same exponential converter source. So, it would probably have limited applications just using it as a VCA. But it's an interesting chip, and I am not familiar with any other chips that use this particular structure, so that makes it kind of interesting.